Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're having a great day. I am Ryan Wolf with Wolf Woodworking, and recently I was able to upgrade to a Laguna table saw
like a treasure from a sunken pirate wreck
for my shop, but I wanted to go over the Ridgid saw I've been using. This is the R4518T table saw that you can get at Home Depot for, I believe, retails around $349. So I wanted to give my review and my experience with it over the last 9 to 10 months, I'd say. Some of the pros and cons of the saw, and just give an overall review of my experience with it. So here we go. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to go over was some of the cons of the saw. I'm a bad news first kind of guy. It gives me something to look forward to for the good news. And I think my biggest issue with this saw, which to me, with a table saw, is one of the biggest issues you can have, is the fence. The fence, when I originally got the saw, worked relatively well. It held just fine. When you adjusted the fence to the position you needed it at, it would stay there. And as time went on and I used the saw more, that became less true. The fence, when it is on the table saw, built-in part of the saw, it is fairly accurate, and there's not much adjusting you need to do to get an accurate straight cut from the front of the blade, as well as the blade protector in the back. Once you start using the extender of the table saw, that's where the issues for me started to come in. At first it was fine. The locking mechanisms for the extended plate worked well. But within a couple months, I was cutting a piece of hardwood and it kicked back. And once I went back and measured the front of the blade to the fence, was about a little over 1/8 of an inch wider than the back, so that pressure was built up, and when the blade cut through the wood and released, it kicked back. Luckily, I wasn't hit, it wasn't hurt, nobody was hurt, nothing was damaged, so it was the best case scenario of a worst case scenario. But from there I learned to measure front and back every time when using it, and maybe that's shame on me. That should be done every time. I had a little bit too much faith in the fence, perhaps. But once you start using the fence, the extended plate more and more, it becomes less secure, and I'll show you what I mean. So this comes out and it's fairly sturdy, but as you can see, with just a little, I'm not putting much pressure on it. The extended rails are not secured. They're moving quite a bit. Now I know your first thought is just, hey, Ryan, why don't you just tighten it and call it a day? Which I did. I tightened it a few times, and it still comes loose after about 1 or 2 uses, which to me isn't very efficient when I use the table saw every day for sometimes hours at a time. Also the issue with the extended plate is that the front and back rails tend to skew. So I came across that same issue before, where you tighten down the saw, you tighten down the fence, and you still have a significant amount of movement in the extended rails. Now, on top of this giving you a inaccurate cut, it's incredibly dangerous. As I mentioned before, if that pressure comes to the back of the blade here, you will inevitably have kickback. And at the rate these saws spin, you don't want that. Someone can get very hurt, or you can get hurt. You can break things. The list goes on. So that was my other big issue with the fence. I was able to set this, adjust the fence, measure, go back. It became a lot of work just to do a cut, which I did not like. I was spending a significant amount of time adjusting the fence with the extended rail to do a cut. And when you're cutting for cabinets and things, and you have to do multiple size cuts a day, the time adds up, and it was not pleasant. So that is my biggest issue with the saw, was the fence, the extended plate, and how it holds up over time. I would assume it's worth noting that the kind of projects I've been doing over the last 9 to 10 months on this saw, anything from cutting boards, cabinets, desks, and hardwoods, plywoods, 2x4s, 2x6s, I mean, every kind of wood, to be honest, you can think of, I've probably put through this thing quite a few times. So that is my, again, my biggest issue with this was the fence extended plate and how it holds up over time. So my next issue with the saw pertains to dust collection and dust in general. This is an undershot of the table saw by the motor. In the housing area here, there is a nice hole right here that, while it's only about 1.5 inches or so by 1/2 inch, shoots out a significant amount of dust. So you can see right here, this area right here is the exhaust dust chute that can collect a good amount of the dust. However, this little port here shoots out quite a bit of dust and makes quite a bit of a mess. And I will take you over to the other side now to show you the other side where dust comes out. Okay, we are now on the other side of the saw, on the underside. You can see here these slots in the housing that will also put out a really significant amount of dust. Even if you have something on top and out of the exhaust chute to collect the dust, a really good amount of dust comes out of the other side. I just showed you then this side as well. It doesn't kick up as much as coming out of the top or the chute, but it still leaves quite a mess, which can be a little frustrating. Again, when you're cutting for hours at a time, the dust definitely builds up, and it can be a little bothersome. I wanted to mention another issue caused by the dust collection on the gears here that raise and lower the saw blade. With the dust that comes out from some of the area back here and in the front, these gears get caked up pretty easily with sawdust. And what happens is it becomes very difficult to raise and lower the saw. Now the flip side to that, simple fix is WD-40 works right away and remedies it pretty quickly. However, that just does become an issue with sawdust then caking up on the WD-40 you put on. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it is a relatively quick fix. Okay, now for some of the pros of this saw. It has a great motor. It is a 15 amp, 5,000 RPM motor that when paired with the correct blade for the wood you are cutting, works very well. I've had no issues with the motor. Every cut has been great and it has worked very well. So I am pleased to give my review of the saw, that it does cut very well and the motor is excellent. Another pro I wanted to point out about this saw is the lightweight and durability of this saw. So my shop is here in my garage and I need to move this saw around a lot. And this saw is fantastic for that. So it's very lightweight, but as I mentioned before, it still gives really great cuts with the motor. So it's a fantastic work site saw, small shop saw where you can move it around a bunch like I need to. So that to me was also a very big pro of this, was it was easy to move around, and for as lightweight as it is, it's still a really good saw with really good cuts. I wanted to suggest a remedy for the pro of the saw cut with the con of the kind of fence that was a little subpar to me. If you are able to build the saw into a workbench or a workstation, that could again remedy the kind of I don't want to use a negative term, but just the fence issues. So this saw might be the right saw for you if you're just looking for cuts. You're not too worried about the fence because you're just gonna make it into your own workstation anyway. And this might be a great saw for you. So that is my overall, again, kind of just brief review with my experience of this saw. I truly hope it helps somebody who's looking to get a saw, whether for or against this one. But my suggestion is watch as many videos as you can on other saws and their reviews, and pick the best one for you that's gonna help you with what you need to do. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them about this saw. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for watching.